Hello and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Adita Karkera, Chief Data Officer for Deloitte's Government and Public Services. And it's my honor today to welcome my very good friend and the state CIO for the state of Nebraska, Dr. Matthew McCarville. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very nice to see you.
So audience, just a quick little story about Matt and me. We had the privilege to work in the offices of CDOs in two different states. About a few years ago, I was serving as the Deputy Chief Data Officer for the state of Arkansas, while Matt was the Chief Data Officer for the state of Florida. So we have a little bit of history, and I've had a chance to witness his amazing career journey for a little bit. So Matt, maybe if we could start off by you telling the audience a little bit about your very rich career history, where you started and how that's prepped you to your current role today.
Certainly. Yeah, we could go all the way back to college because I think I'm one of also the very few that started in a completely different industry. I did not start in IT. I started in finance, got my MBA in finance, started in investment management. Then the housing crisis hit in 2008, and the hedge fund I worked for had money in Bernie Madoff and in some of the other ones that disappeared with collateral debt obligations, and everything just faded into the mist. And I decided I'd use my data skills in analyzing hedge funds and go get a master's in BI, then got a master's in software development and project management, and then got a doctorate in applied AI and business intelligence analytics, and got myself into private sector IT. And Union Pacific Railroad, worked there for a long time, years. I went in their commercial subsidiary that did IT modernization, business process reengineering, then got into fuel and data analytics in the early stages of when AI was kind of coming out. We were doing predictive intelligence on fuel analytics spend based on running IoT metrics of, incline, decline, all sorts of different ecosystem and weather statistics were coming into those calculations, and the horsepower and the weight of the locomotives, the traction on the track, then everything. So that's how I kind of started into data analytics, and then got into consulting with Price Waterhouse, became the first ever chief data scientist for human capital and metrics and analytics out of their international office. Did that for a while, traveled all the time. We moved to Florida. My wife took a position at the University of Florida, and they had a vacancy for the first ever chief data officer for the university. And so I became that, also a professor of data analytics and AI. Did that for a while till the governor of Florida opened a first ever state chief data officer for the state of Florida, which in the legislation was a peer to the state CIO. And that was 1 year before COVID. So I took that position in the December before COVID, and my wife became the deputy director of HR for the state of Florida. And then we started in March, and I think everybody knows what happened in March of COVID year. And that became a very interesting pivot of a role that had a deep definition prior to COVID, then a massive pivot when COVID hit because the CIO vacated, the CISO vacated. And so I became officially the state chief data officer, but also the interim CIO and CISO all through COVID and right after. So we bailed out the unemployment process using RPA, data analytics, automation. We re-engineered all sorts of different platforms. We put in data analytics and dashboards and all sorts of things that everybody, especially you, knew that in COVID, we were measuring things that we never measured ever before, whether it be health, whether it be K through 12 education, tracking students, unemployment, all sorts of things. And so that was a deep immersion in a lot of broad areas that I probably wouldn't have gotten access to so quickly in my role as state CDO. While all the time trying to develop a state enterprise data catalog, metadata management, a centralized repository of the siloed agency data into an area that can be ran for analytics, AI, dashboarding, KPIs and metrics, and reports flowing to the governor's office. And so when COVID ended and things started changing massively in the state of Florida, my wife and I ended up moving to Colorado, and I became the CIO for the University of Colorado, specifically over the Denver campus. And then my wife went to University of Colorado Boulder, and we did that for a few years. And then Nebraska was looking for a new state CIO, and I made some phone calls asking who they were looking for. And I ended up being a really good fit, met the governor for the first time. And what I do with the modernization, reengineering, using data analytics and data as an asset to move forward and modernize and measure things was exactly what the governor was looking for. So it became my biggest asset, my data background, in moving a state that was in legacy IT and mainframe forward into an area of never having chief data, never having AI, never having a BI platform, never even having cybersecurity, and developing all of those things from scratch while also maintaining operations in the mainframe and knowing that the large portion of COBOL developers that we have are an aging population that we can't retain. So we have to modernize across the board.
What a fantastic journey, Matt. And you've had extensive IT experience both in the public and the private sector. So a great journey. But as you were talking about your role as CIO and then CDO and then CIO again, I know the big question in my mind is, we hear a lot about CDO collaborating with the CIO, sometimes collaboration, sometimes lack of collaboration. I know there's a lot of discussions there. And you've been kind of in a unique position that you've witnessed both sides of that role, right? You've been a CDO and a CIO. Tell me, what do you think are some of the strategies to help increase collaboration between these two roles? How do we get the best? How do we get the most energy from these two offices?
One of the things this governor likes to talk about here in Nebraska is you can't measure or you can't analyze and improve things that you're not measuring. And in order to measure things, you need data. In government modernization, they need data for everything, for decision point. We're in a budget deficit here. He can't make decisions on where the biggest impact for a dollar is going or where the cuts should come from unless he understands the impact of those initiatives. How many people are tied to that? Is there a cost positive ROI of that department? Its impact on citizens, its impact on efficiencies in departments, a platform. I mean, we are 100% charged back here in the state, like many other states are for IT. And what that means is we don't get general fund appropriation directly. We have a rate card and those rates are charged to the agencies who then pay that. So starting up new things like AI and data and cybersecurity that never had rates ever before, no one's ever paid those. We aren't funded for those. So we now have to use data as an asset to figure out how do we scale up in the most impactful way where our dollar is measured on its impact. On its ability to have that return on the state for where we're putting those things to move those initiatives forward. And its irony is that everything kind of hinges on the data. And we quickly found out that you can't really do AI on the mainframe because it's all physically here, and it may not be impossible, but it is definitely not affordable. So we are moving into a multi-cloud ecosystem, doing containerization, moving data up into the cloud, but then finding out that the ingress egress cost in cloud are monumentally larger than we anticipated, right? And then finding out we have to clean the data when it goes to the cloud because we're putting in logs all the way back to 1995 that we don't necessarily need. So we comes back to the data. The data becomes the centralized asset for everything, right? To modernize, to move to the cloud, we now need to look at the data. Is it clean? Do we need it? What's the archive rules? How are we auto enrolling different departments in different things or de-enrolling them and removing them if they're not needed to ensure that their data isn't being moved to a cloud environment that we're going to be billed for that isn't needed. The irony is that data kind of flows across everything. That becomes the key to understanding how we modernize is really looking at that data and ensuring that data is clean.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Matt, and for sharing your experiences and your insights and your great career journey with the audience today. And for the rest of the audience, continue to stay tuned and watch out for other interviews coming out of this series.